One more speaker, Kim Roney, advocate for local public transportation. Thanks.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What a pleasure to be here with y'all today. Thank you to Daniel Suber for acknowledging the building that we're in the historic YMI, in this historic neighborhood, and in the amount of time I'm talking to you in a historic time, because here we are, right? I want to tell you a story. I work with students. I'm a piano teacher. And earlier this year, it was probably late spring, one of my students came in really, in incredible grief and could hardly move his body. He was feeling so much pain, and he was just tears flowing down his face. And I'm like, man, what happened? What's going on in your world? Can I do something? And he's like, well, it's just homework is really hard. And I was like, yeah, it is. It does get hard to do that kind of stuff. What's the homework that you're doing? He's like, well, my teacher has me reading the news and writing about it. And I was like, yeah, well, that gets me really low too. How do you choose what to read? And he said that he came across a paper that explained that we only had 10 years to make the kind of action that we would need, and that he felt no one cared, and no one was taking it seriously, and there wasn't enough time to get anything done. So I looked his parents in. But I told him pretty much two things. One, you're not alone. The reason I'm not on the floor crying with you is because I've cried so many times. And I told him about the Sunrise Movement, and I told him about our climate revolution, and I told him about Greta Thunberg, and just let him know that he's not by himself. And second, that the thing that we need to do is something. So that has stuck with me, and it will for a long time, because I realized that I always talked about how the next generation is going to look back and say, what did we do at this time? But they're the ones doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and it is really lonely, as we can all acknowledge. Now, I know that I'm speaking to the choir in this room, because I see the faces of my neighbors who are just working so diligently every single day. But I want to just say that you're not alone. If you feel like this is too hard and you've been working forever and it feels like no one cares, I'm your neighbor and I'm working with you. But we need to get a lot more people. And I think a lot about what it means when we talk about what we means. And for me, I have to acknowledge that if my neighbor is not free, then I can't really be free. So it's not just the environmental issues, it's justice in general that we need to be addressing. So there's big issues in our community that we need to address, but collective liberation has got to be part of it. But the three things I'm going to talk about today are probably things you already know about. One is, y'all know about the Cadmus report. Hopefully the 100% renewables, the city and the county came together and they got a consultant to tell us how we were going to get to the plan. And when I read it, it does not tell us how to get to the plan. I expected it to be hard, really hard, almost seemingly undoable, and incredibly expensive so that we would really start to address the allocation of funds. But right now it reads that we're not going to get there. So I encourage all of my neighbors, if you haven't already, to provide some feedback on the Cadmus report, because we need courageous action and demands to make those changes. Number two, the Tourism Development Authority, and the Cadmus report, as Shane mentioned, doesn't mention anything about the cities needing to have a fully electric fleet. So that includes our bus fleet. So the second thing is the Tourism Development Authority is hosting this TMIP survey. I saw Claire. And if we are going to be honest about this, we have a lot of tourists coming here in planes and cars. And we are going to need to just full on demand that they address that. One of the ways that I've suggested is that there's this crazy expensive $750,000 charging that will work for the electric buses to charge really quickly. I know we talked about the overhead charges with the wires before. They can do that. They can invest in a fully electric fleet. They're going to tell you it has to be stuff we can buy. It's capital. It's not something that we do, but we can pay for salaries. That's something that we can do, and it needs to be done. And the third thing is, I didn't fully understand what needed to happen with Asheville's transit system until I started riding the bus. So when I ride the bus, I'm next to people that, like me, are carrying their groceries, and they are picking up their kids, and they're getting to work, and they're getting home. I met one neighbor in North Asheville. He's an elder, and he doesn't have family nearby. So once a week, he treats himself, and he rides the bus to a different place to get fried chicken. And I was like, oh, okay, wow, I'm probably going to see this neighbor again, because this is like his route once a week. But I wouldn't know that he had a story or about him as a person at all if I hadn't gotten on the bus with him. So we will definitely find things that need improvement on our transit system if we do this at least once a month. So we need funding. We need full funding for the transit master plan. We're not there. We're already behind. So I encourage everyone to email the city council, but the county is not off the hook. As a resident of the city, I am a resident of Buncombe County, and we need Buncombe County to come in and help us with funding, because we need to be able to have a system that works, that thrives. Totally appreciated that. It really resonated with me. Because it is a center intersection where we can address meaningful climate response, equitable access, and economic mobility. So, those are the three things. Please raise your hand if you can commit to doing something really challenging and replace a car trip with a bus trip within the next month. All right, well, I look forward to seeing you on the bus. Thank you so much for the time and for being here.